Hello, lovely people. Are you ready to be inspired and motivated? Well, meet our guest Olga, a highly engaging speaker with a global reach that spans across 5 continents, having a unique perspective on personal development, self leadership, transformation, and change. She comes as a thought provoking speaker who leaves a lasting impact on her audience. Her expertise and experience in mindset coaching and self leadership have allowed her to make a meaningful impact on the lives of countless of individuals. In fact, high achievers, C-suite executives worldwide are seeking to elevate their leadership skills. And not only these guys, but couples who are seeking to deepen their connection. She has served and helped others to achieve their full potential. As a global citizen, she has extensively traveled across the globe, amassing a wealth of knowledge from diverse cultures and experiences. No wonder she uses this knowledge to connect with her audience and deliver transformative content that inspires change. Her journey as an international best-selling author, you can see a couple of books in the background, has been nothing short of remarkable. Having co-authored books with renowned experts and industry leaders such as Sharon Lecher, Brian Tracy, Patrick Carney. In fact, the list goes on. We are privileged and honored to have Olga today with us on our podcast, Buland Honsle. And it's not about just getting a speaker, but someone who's dedicated to make things a success. Whether you're looking to elevate your leadership skills, deepen your connections, or transform your life, Olga has the necessary expertise and experience to help you achieve your goals. So, without wasting much of our time, let me invite Olga to our show and get inspired by the experience that she brings. Welcome, Olga.
It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Tarun. It's a pleasure.
Olga, before we start our conversation, it's always good to know who is Olga? What inspired you to pursue a career as a relationship counselor and expert? I would request you to share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for asking this question. And I would like to start with it was just internal message inside of me to learn about relationships. And the reason for that is that I grew up in dysfunctional family, like many people in the world. I'm only not only one, right? And I knew how is not good. I knew what was not healthy. I knew what was not feeling like it should be there. I just got curious. I was really curious about what is a normal relationship in that case, how it can be different, what could be opposite to what I had when I was growing up. And of course, it became a lifelong journey. And I did not become a relationship coach straight away. In fact, I don't even say that I am a relationship coach. I do say I'm mindset and relationship coach. And the reason why, because when I work with couples or individuals on their relationships, it is always about their own mindset because there's no such a thing as a separate unit called relationship because you and your partner together are building that relationship. And therefore, your mindset is really important in that union, right? But what happened that I decided to do so is just because I realized when I was doing the mindset coaching, every single time we will work on anything else, career or somebody else's well-being or leadership skills, it will always go back to relationships. And not just relationship with other people, but most importantly, relationship with themselves. So
Yeah.
that's why just started to emphasizing it a little bit. I started to kind of mention it even more as a separate unit. But it doesn't mean right now I digress and I just do relationship coaching because I do coaching actually for 15 years. And I have done it for multiple couples and multiple individuals for all these years. But now it's just I speak more often about it because especially nowadays, like never before, the importance of relationship is huge. So that's why I hope I answered the question.
Absolutely. In fact, that brings me to my next question to you. That what kind of common misconceptions do people have about love and relationship that you often encounter in your work?
You know, one of the biggest misconception, or I would say even a mistake, because it is a huge mistake, is for people to think they will figure out their relationship by themselves. It's like if you have a boiler broken at your home or if your car gets broken, you don't just jump under the bonnet trying to fix it unless you're a mechanic, right? Somehow you got to call a professional for them to come out and check your car or check your boiler or something else. But when it comes to relationships, we have such a big stigma and so much ego and pride that, oh, no, 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 I'm great at my relationships. It's not me, it's them. The partner is wrong. It's them is wrong. It's the world is wrong, but it's not me. And I always say, just like you can't fix the car by yourself unless you're a mechanic, and even then, probably sometimes your mechanic should look into your car, right? You also won't be able to figure out your relationship sometimes without professional help. Because again, let's remember, we all grew up in different environments, different families, nowadays, even different countries and different continents,
Absolutely.
which means we got to learn how to navigate our relationships. And that's why I just love doing that. But I always say, don't come to me when it is too late. Because if you're too late, what's
Things
the
are
point?
beyond redemption.
Yes. It's still worth it because you will work on your own mindset, your partner will work on their own mindset, and together you will have a much nicer separation if this was supposed to happen. Because again, sometimes you got to separate for the goodness of both people. But even if you will come at the very end of your relationship, the divorce, the separation will be much nicer. But I always say, don't delay, please. Just like with your dentist, just like with any other health issues, go as soon as you see the symptoms. Go
Mhm.
to the specialist as soon as you see there's a crack in a relationship. Don't wait for the whole earthquake to happen. Just
Absolutely.
see the signs and go ahead.
Yeah, many times people procrastinate, and that is their biggest burden that they later on carry along with themselves. In fact,
Mm.
I love what you said. If you're not able to find where the problem lies, look in the mirror. Probably you'll be able to see one.
Absolutely. The problem always lies within us.
Yeah.
Whatever our partners do or don't do, say or don't say, is always a mirror of what we do to ourselves, regardless what it is. Even when partners sometimes complain about their narcissistic partners and they say, yeah, but what can be wrong with me if I'm with narcissistic partner? Well, you might be belittling yourself.
Yes.
You might be neglecting your needs. You might be invalidating your feelings. Otherwise, why would a narcissist pick you?
Absolutely. I think I couldn't agree more.
Hmm.
So, how would you define a healthy and a fulfilling relationship? And what are some critical ingredients, according to you, that are required to maintain one such relationship?
Can we please make sure everybody in the world will hear the answer? Because we need that answer to be heard. What is healthy in a body? When there's no pain, there's no discomfort. It's very easy, right? You know when your body is healthy because there's no pain, there's no discomfort, right? Whenever you feel pain or discomfort, this one you know something is wrong. The same with relationships. Healthy relationship doesn't bring you pain. Healthy relationship doesn't bring you discomfort. You have to adjust to each other, absolutely. Just like sometimes you go for easy walk, you don't adjust, and then you go for mountaineering walk, and you have to adjust the way how you walk. So that's called adjustment. It's not a problem. It's not painful. It's not discomfort. It's just you have to adjust,
Yes.
right? But when it comes to you feeling hurt, when it comes to you feeling unhappy, this is unhealthy relationship, right? And it doesn't mean now you have to write it off. It just means there is something within you and your partner that you can work on with together. But that's why I said you and your partner, not your partner only, because it takes two to tango, right?
Yes.
We can't just blame them.
Yes.
It's people. It is always two people, regardless what happens. Okay. And ingredients for maintaining the relationship one will be maintenance. Just like with your car, you change the oil on a regular basis, you clean the car, you put good fuel into the car, right? You change the filters, you regularly do the service once a year. The same with relationships. In fact, I have a great product called Relationship Journal. And this is fantastic for maintenance of relationships. Because let's be honest, how often do you sit down with your partner and you look at your last 7 days and you say, what was great about relationships?
What
Like,
we
what
did
was
great
fantastic?
or what we did great.
Yeah, exactly. And also, okay, what did we argue about? And how could we prevent it in the future?
Absolutely.
That's something to think about, right? We don't think about measuring our relationship at all because it's not natural for us. And that's why I have a relationship wheel here,
Mhm.
where every week with your partner, you sit down and you see, okay, where was the trust in our relationship this week? And where was the connection? Did we really feel connected? What about spirituality or maybe support? Did they feel supported? And then you feel in the wheel of relationships and you sit down with your partner and you have a beautiful discussion. You don't tell to your partner, we have to talk. No, this is a gentle discussion about how your relationship is. And that helps you to maintain relationship. But without conversations, without discussions about your relationship, how do you know what's going on? So whether you will choose to have a relationship journal or you just will choose to have a discussion with your partner, have it at a very deep and vulnerable level. Have a conversation with your partner on a regular basis, at least once a week, about your relationship, about how are you doing, what's missing, what could be added, what is fantastic in your relationship, because that will help you to maintain your healthy relationship.
There are two things that emerge from this. One, in our part of the world, we say that you cannot clap with one hand, you need another one. So that is where both you and your partner comes. And the second is that having this kind of a mindful conversation with your partner. Olga, I think these are pearls of wisdom. And if people follow these simple tips that you're sharing, I think they're going to benefit a lot. Now, the next thing
Thank you.
that I intend to ask you is what advice would you give to people or would to individuals navigating through the complexities of modern dating, particularly with the rise of online dating apps and the social media? How can people establish and maintain healthy boundaries while dating?
Hmm. Love that. And I will start with the second question because it just jumps at me. You don't establish boundaries within the relationship or dating. You have them for yourself by default, right? When you're in a relationship, it's a little bit too late. You got to know your boundaries before the relationship because these boundaries will help you to establish whether you should pick this partner or another, right? So that's why I start with the second question. Learn about your boundaries because then you are just sharing with each other what are those boundaries.
Okay.
But if you're intending only learn about boundaries in the relationship, then that will challenge you,
Yes.
that will push your boundaries, that will take advantage of that. So don't be surprised. So have your boundaries before you go dating. Learn about your boundaries today so you can apply them today and tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? So that's about boundaries. But when it comes, how can we navigate the complexities of modern dating with the apps and social media and you name it? Because now there's so many ways how you can go and find somebody. You got to know your standards. So think about boundaries as I will not go as far as, right? This is the no zone, right? This is my limit. This is the boundary. But the standards is I will not go below then. So
Okay.
what are your standards? Next thing, know what do you want? Not what you don't want, because if you focus what you don't want, you will get it. Okay? But you got to know what you want.
Mhm.
You got to know absolutely what you want and You got to know your non-negotiable list. What is in the list of your non-negotiables when it comes to your potential partner? Right? For example, you know you want them to be certain age, you want them to be willing to have family or not. That's, that's what you want. But what's your non-negotiables? It could be them taking drugs or them drinking alcohol, them smoking, whatever. But you got to know that. Because then when you know these three things, your standards, right? I will not go below then. What you want, right? You got to be kind, you got to be loyal, you got to be passionate about what you do. You got to be certain age, certain height, whatever it is, right? That's what you want. That's what I want. And also I have my non-negotiables. If you are so and so, no thanks. Then when you go, it doesn't matter. Apps, social media, on the street. Then when you go out there, you have this mental list inside of your mind. So that means whenever somebody is approaching you, all you have to do is just check in with yourself. Check in with your standards. Are they up to your standards? Check in with your what you want list. Are they matching that? If they're not, maybe you forgot to add something to your list. It's always a good exercise to do, right? And also check with your non-negotiables. Are they already having something that is in your non-negotiable? That means they're not for you, and that's okay. And most important thing to remember, that the next partner who will come your way whilst you're dating is not the best of the best just yet. Okay? You got to really see if you'll be happy with this partner, with this person long term. Okay? Again, non-negotiables, your standards, and obviously what you want, right? But you also got to think that if they're a little bit better than before, if they're matching just a little bit of your what you want list, it doesn't mean you have to settle with them. It really doesn't mean that. This person who is not matching fully your list of what you want is just a sign that your person is on the way. They are just a sign. Don't jump ahead. Don't just get married to them. Don't have 15 children and they're like, oh, yeah, you were actually the wrong choice. I actually could be with somebody else. Just wait. Don't be so desperate. That's why working on yourself is so important, because if you're needy and desperate, you will go into the wrong relationship.
Many times we do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In fact, one thing that emerges is that we should have a danger zone or a kind of a line which you create for yourself, that beyond this it is no go. And once you have drawn the lines for yourself, and I call them as the your circles of safety or whatever you have, whichever way you want to give names to them, they are going to help you stay within the safe zone. And any relationship requires the most important thing: time. You just can't, it's not like a cup of instant coffee. You beat it and you get it. We have to spend a lot of time, we have to spend a lot of emotions, we have to spend a lot of things building a relationship. And
Absolutely.
Olga, one thing that I realized was communication is often cited as a crucial or a critical aspect of a successful relationship. What are some effective communication strategies couples can use to strengthen their connection? How they can navigate conflicts and disagreements constructively, and even more importantly, respectfully?
Like so many questions in one, right? But yeah, let's just go one by one. So when it comes to communication, it's fun enough because yesterday I actually was doing the online workshop on relationships. And when I asked in the audience, okay, so what would you like for me to go into first during this workshop? And of course, many people like, oh, I would like to make my partner talk to me. I would like to improve communication in my relationship. So you're spot on.
Mhm.
It is definitely a critical part of relationship, because many people in my audience yesterday, they said exactly that: communication. And I asked this question to everybody. I said, okay, let me ask you this question. How good is the communication with yourself?
Mhm.
And what I had is blank eyes on the screen. Like, what do you mean? So
Absolutely.
what I mean is, how often do you validate your feelings? How often do you express to yourself what you like and what you don't like? How often are you honest with yourself and transparent, what doesn't serve you? How often do you tell yourself what do you want and you allow yourself to have it? And of course, I can carry on with questions, but I could see eyes on the screen getting bigger and bigger, and people were like, oh. And I said, look, we can expect and we can demand from our partners better communication until we turn purple. We can
Mhm.
hit our heads against the wall, demand better communication. But you haven't learned to communicate with yourself constructively, then you won't get from your partner,
So true.
right? So you got to communicate with yourself first, because when two people learn how to communicate with themselves well, they are able respectfully, because they
Absolutely.
respect themselves, and constructively, because they had constructive conversation with themselves, to have communication between two people.
Yes.
And
It's so
that is everywhere. Yeah, that's in intimate relationships as well as in professional relationships. That's everywhere.
in fact, most of the time, one person is talking and the other person is just listening.
Absolutely. And that's why listening to understand is a rule number one.
Yes.
Listen to understand, not to respond.
Not to reply. Yes.
Absolutely. Because when you're just waiting for your turn to respond, it's not communication. It's you just trying to build up your ego and you take care of your pride more than relationship. Then why are you in this relationship?
I would call it, no, you're waiting with that hammer, no, just to land on that anvil. You're just waiting for your,
Well, you got
yes, probably with the boxing gloves on. It's my personal. Yeah, that's very important. In fact, I think when we talk about communication, we must understand that the kind of communication we are having with ourselves has a bearing on our communication with our partner. It's so profound. It's so profound. What are some signs that relationship may be at risk of infidelity? And how can couples proactively address underlying issues to prevent it from occurring? You must have come across a lot of things, no? Bordering around this concept.
Of course, absolutely. Well, in fact, my relationship broke down because of my husband's infidelity. So yes, first experience for sure. But when it comes to infidelity, I would say, how can you prevent it? By choosing a partner who is loyal.
How do you do that? It's only time will tell.
Again,
Yeah, Olga, when we get into a relationship, most of the time it's instinct, gut feeling, the kind of vibe that we get, the kind of chemistry that builds up, so many things where we see that, okay, these checkbox are getting ticked and all those things. And obviously, hormones are also at play.
mhm,
So, not denying all those things. And that's why we say that we are humans. To err is human. So, and then we create blunders. So,
mhm,
we get into a relationship where for the other person, priorities were something else, whereas for you, priorities were something else. And while you were in that relationship, fortunately or unfortunately, I say it that we both are putting our best foot forward. It's only when we get onto this, when we start getting down from the two sides of the bed, we start realizing that, and that is where the compromise and some kind of things they start happening. And you'd say, it may work. I have to just put in a little bit more into my relationship. And after some time, you may realize that it worked, and sometimes it didn't. Isn't it
mhm.
true?
It is true. And yet, I would like to invite you to look into ourselves again. Because when you are loyal to yourself, you will pick a loyal partner because you're attracting what you are. When you lie to yourself, and so many people lie to themselves all the time, including myself, I was lying to myself. When I started my really deep work as a result of finding out what my husband was doing, I went into a really deep discovery how much I was lying to myself about who he was. I fall in love with the person Ash. I was looking at his potential rather who he was. So when you're dating somebody, it's really important to see people who they are. pay really close attention to their actions.
There is a very
Pay
deep
really close.
meaning to this. There is a very deep meaning to this, what you say. You're looking at his
Yes.
potential than actually who he was.
Yeah. Because we are so good at building a personage, at seeing people potential, thinking, I just will help you to become that person. Mm-mm. That's
Yes.
their job. That's their job to become whoever they want to become. But your job is to know exactly what you want and to be that. Stop falling in love with the potential. See people for who they are. If you think they have potential to become a better version of themselves, leave them alone. Let them become better version and then meet them.
And
You're not their coach, you're not their therapist. I made this mistake.
you're not part of that journey yet.
No, no, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with helping people to become better versions of ourselves because it is a teamwork. It
Mm.
is a couplehood. It is a power couple that's working on themselves continuously. But when you fall in love with a potential, rather somebody really doing the work on themselves, these are two different things. And falling in love with potential means you will get hurt one day.
Mhm.
See if they do the work to become what you think they can become. Okay. But when it comes to how can we, see the signs of there could be infidelity or cheating in the relationships, well, it's about you again looking at their behavior, looking at their actions. And it's not necessarily are they looking at other people. It could be are they loyal at work? How good are they at building relationships with other people just like yourself? Like friends, could be family members. Are
Mm.
they loyal to themselves? Are they keeping the promises? It's the little signs that will tell you whether the person has the standard of being honest and loyal, or you will have little signs of person not being honest and loyal. And if they're not honest and loyal somewhere, there will be not honest and loyal somewhere else. Just remember that. But again, it always starts with yourself. The minute you will start being transparent and honest with yourself, and you will look at people for who they are rather than their potential, you will stop lying to yourself about, oh, let's ignore this red flag or that red flag. You will attract person who is vibrating at the same level. So
Absolutely.
again, start with yourself.
In fact, in the military, they used to say that when it comes to honesty, integrity, character, these are absolute values. You can't,
Mhm.
either you are zero or you are 10. There is nothing in between.
Exactly. You can't be a little bit honest, a little bit dishonest. It just
Yes.
just doesn't work that way, right? You either are or you're not.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah.
So, what practices or exercises can individuals engage in to promote personal growth and emotional well being within relationships? Is there something that they can do to improve, be a better version of themselves?
They can, absolutely. But let's remember, you are not each other coach or therapist, right? Because you will be never able to detach emotionally from each other in
Mm.
order to provide truly an emotional response or an emotional advice or an emotional, challenge or something else. So
Yes.
that's working with a professional will definitely help you both. And the way how I usually work with couples, I work with a couple together. In between sessions, we have individual work with both of them, and then we have another couple sessions. I would just rotate like that because it's important for me to see the individual growth as well as the relationship growth. But what can two people do to promote personal growth is to ask themselves better questions. Why do I do what I do? What made me do or say this or that? What drives me? What controls my choices? Why am I the way I am? When you start asking yourself these and many other questions, what happens? You challenge your default programming. And when you challenge your default programming, this is when you open up the box for even more revelations and even more news from the past. And you will be able to discover how you are not who you were planning to be, but you are just a result of programming from your parents, programming from your society, from your culture, programming from the movies you watched and the heroes you have for yourself, programming from the books, programming from the music, from the poems, from I can go on and on how many layers of programming we have,
Yeah.
right? But what you can do is just instead of telling, you do it like your mother or you are just like your father, look into yourself. Look into yourself. And when both people look into themselves and ask each other, honey, do you think I sometimes behave just like my mother? It's different conversation. Rather, you always do just like your mother, because that creates the conflict.
Absolutely.
Right? And then having weekly, ideally weekly, really deep, meaningful discussions in privacy without children, extra family members, just two of you sitting down and having meaningful discussion about how is it going? What have you learned about yourself this week? What have you learned about each other this week? What have you learned about your programming? Where are you going? What is your vision? Like you're walking away from default programming, but where are you walking towards to? So when you have these discussions, you will be able to help each other with personal growth. But again, having a professional means that you will not be able to tell the lies to each other and yourself. Not because you would want to tell lies, but because a professional will be able to spot when you lie to yourself, when you lie to them. And your partner won't be able to to spot that because they're not trained to do that,
Hmm.
right? And they will
That is,
generally be involved with you emotionally as well. So they can't detach. Whilst professionals, they're not even attached to you. They're just there to give you professional feedback.
yeah, there is no
What?
judging. They're not judging. They're not being judgmental about how do they
No.
perceive it.
Exactly. And that's what working with professional will give you opportunity to open up fully. Because there are situations that you don't want to discuss with your partner just yet. Maybe you're not ready yet, maybe they're not ready yet, and you would like to learn how to communicate that, but you can't do it with your partner. And I always say, if you don't trust your partner with what you went through, then why are you with this partner? You got to trust them, right? But still, it's easier to practice how to even say things to your partner when you're working on that with a professional. Because professional can guide you about better ways of communicating that. Rather, you just going and saying, I need to tell you something. We need to have a conversation. I need to talk to you. And it's just not going to help none of you.
Absolutely. In fact, there was something very interesting that we touched about uh, during the coaching sessions, which I indulge in. I've seen that many a times people they have the problem somewhere else, and when you go deeper into the coaching session, you realize that they are coming out with those inferences or the problems that they're actually facing. And most of the time, Olga, what I've seen is that people are saying stupid things to each other just to hurt. They don't
Yeah.
mean it, or probably they are very mean about it because of whatever reasons. And if the way you mentioned it, that if they start having these meaningful, purposeful communications, this relationship can be saved. Otherwise, they're just going south.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And remember, hurt people hurt other people.
Absolutely. So true.
Heal yourself. You got to heal yourself so you don't hurt other people. As simple as that.
Okay, now that when we are coming on to these touchy subjects, so trust and intimacy are foundational elements of a solid relationship. They're the functionalities between partners. How can couples build and nurture trust over time?
It's such an interesting belief that you build trust over time, when actually you either trust or you don't trust. As simple as that. When you meet somebody, when you trust yourself, you will trust the world. And when your trust was broken by one person or another, and when you start diving really deep into what actually happened, every single time I work with somebody on that, in fact, I have a program which is designed to help people to heal from a heartbreak. And of course, during that program, there's a whole module on rebuilding the trust. And that module is designed to help people to rebuild their own trust towards themselves. What do I mean by building trust towards themselves? Trusting your choices, trusting your intuition or instinct or sense. You can call it whatever you want, but it's there. Something like a higher power, right?
Mhm.
Trusting your decisions. When you learned how you trust yourself, then you can trust the world because you will trust your intuition when it says this person can be flaky. You trust your intuition and you don't choose this person. But when you don't trust yourself, you ignore your intuition and then you blame yourself for not trusting your intuition. And you put all expectations on another person to help you rebuild the trust. Well, go back to square one. Start with yourself. And you don't build trust over time. You either trust or don't trust. So you always have to work on your own trust towards yourself and your own trust issues. And I get it. Nowadays, it's so easy to break trust. We have social media. We have a lot more people right now in the world. We have different ways how we can go to work, hybrid and remote, and all of that brings you more opportunities to obviously break the trust. But again, if you trust yourself, you're going to be attracting people whom you can trust. And when you cannot trust them because people are allowed to walk around anywhere they are, then you just feel that and you repel them. And you simply choose not to be with them, regardless if it is a business or your intimate relationship. You just feel you can't trust them. You don't have to even seek confirmation of that. You know you can't trust them and you don't. And you just walk away and you just don't even entertain them. You don't get closer to them. You just don't have them in your life.
Interesting. I have a different take on this. When I do my trust and teamwork sessions in a different context altogether, not in the context of couples and all those things. The two things that I found lacking in any corporate environment is trust and teamwork. And most of the people they ask that how do armies of the world are so successful? And I said, these are the two pillars on which they always operate. When we are working with our team members, we are like two brothers from different mothers. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for him. And I know, given an opportunity, he will do the same for me.
Mm.
Unfortunately, this doesn't happen in the corporate world. It's a dog eat dog world. So when I ask people that you have to go and trust somebody, so they say, why don't they trust me? And I said, somebody has to start this process. So, how about you taking a calculated decision and
Mm.
trusting people? There are only two ways this thing will work out. Either they will prove you right or they'll prove you wrong. Either way, you're not going to lose, you're going to gain. So start trusting people because that is so important for us. And many times, people, those who even want to take advantage of this trust factor, they would be overwhelmed with this kind of a thing that, oh my God, you have trusted them. How can they get back onto their words or their commitments? And they start delivering because it's a very powerful emotion that we are dealing with. So there are different ways, and we all learn by hit and try. But that is how life comes to us in different ways, whether it is relationship or it is the corporate world.
It's
Somewhere
really
or the other, yeah, somewhere
principle
or
for
the other, yes, these things are working on the similar level. That's what
it's
I'm gathering from our conversation. So, what role does vulnerability plays in fostering intimacy and deepening the emotional connection within the romantic relationships? Now, let's make our conversation a little bit more interesting.
how much more interesting do you want to go? That's the question.
Yes.
I love that. Well, I must say um, vulnerability opens hearts. Vulnerability connects people. Vulnerability helps to see people trust you. If I don't trust you, I wouldn't go vulnerable what would happen to me. So when I vulnerably share, what am I actually telling? That I'm trusting you. But for me to trust something with you vulnerably, I have to trust myself first that I'm safe to share with you vulnerably. So can you see how it really is starting with yourself, even with the trust, right? So vulnerability is definitely is a massive it's humongous concept in relationships, right? But it's not easy to go vulnerable, especially when you're a man and you're programmed that you got to just suck it up, you don't show emotions, you don't express yourself, it's very girlish if you talk a lot and all that. But maybe that's why I have some men coming to me and working on their anger issues, because they bottled it up for too long,
So
because they don't share for too long, right? So in order to improve your relationships with a powerful vulnerability, it's just a matter of sharing, but sharing in a way of not blaming, right? It's remembering that I will choose vulnerable to share with you how do I feel, not how you made me feel, but how do I feel,
that is so.
right? And that is a big difference, because very often people blame each other for, you made me feel that way. No, you allowed yourself to feel that way. And yes, they can do whatever, but if you just shut down and if you walk away, they cannot get into you, right? They cannot. They will try, but if you completely switch off yourself and you just delete them from your life, then what they can do? Nothing. It's like if I will start talking to you right now in foreign language and I will swear at you and I will tell bad words, because you don't understand the foreign language, you will think I'm saying something beautifully, right? Because you switch off completely because you don't understand the language. The same happens when we energetically detach from somebody. But if you really want to deepen up your relationship, then start sharing. And here we need to remember something. When a woman is sharing, she's sharing a lot. And many men very often ask me, Olga, what do I do? She's coming from work and I ask her, how was your day? And she's telling me everything. It's a lot. I don't even know what to do with that information. And I always say, just listen. Just seeking your advice. She's not seeking your help. She's not seeking you jump on board and give you her suggestions. All she wants for you to listen, right? Because now she's vulnerably sharing what really happened in her world. And when it comes for you, you share from your side. But of course, we women will want men to share with us a little bit more than, how was your day? Fine. Because when we hear fine, we feel you don't trust us with what happened. What feelings did you have during the day? What have you learned? What happened? We feel you don't trust us. So you got to start with something on a daily basis, on a very simple way, share with each other. And then go deeper, and then go deeper, and then go deeper. Practice vulnerability. It's something we've forgotten. It's something that, like a muscle that was not trained for a very long time. You got to build that muscle of vulnerability. The more you practice that, the better and stronger it gets. So just practice that.
So today, one big lesson for all those men who encounter such women is that when someone comes and shares a lot with you, it is also a sign of that she trusts you with so much of information.
Yes.
And it's very empowering. And that is why I asked you this question about vulnerability, because being vulnerable is seen as a sign of weakness, whereas accepting your vulnerability is a very empowering feeling. It liberates you. It's a sign of courage. It's something like you are getting over your fears, because you cannot stay in that fearful zone for too long.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why
Absolutely.
it's very important for us to understand. And obviously, God has created men and women so differently. We are so differently hardwired. If we start understanding how we operate, how the other person operates, I think there is a lot we can do in a far better way. And that is what I'm gathering today, and probably our listeners too.
That's great.
What critical factors should couples consider before making a long term commitment or getting married? How can couples establish clear boundaries and expectations around fidelity and strengthen their commitment to each other as they move forward?
Okay, something we already discussed earlier on, the boundaries, including fidelity boundaries, should be discussed prior to any dating. That's what you establish, this what you know about yourself, this one you know. that for you, texting somebody is infidelity, or going out for a coffee is infidelity. And when you know that that's what for you is the boundary, you'll be already quite careful whom do you choose. You'll be already seeing the early signs if they appear. So when you know your boundaries, you'll be obviously attracting somebody with their strong boundaries matching yours as well. It's just how it works, right? It just simply works that way. So learn about your boundaries before even going dating. So you can actually have healthy boundaries right from the start of the relationship. And of course, as a couple, as two people who are going to the relationship, you got to learn about each other. And what I would like to say when it comes to building long-term relationship or going to the marriage and stuff like that, you got to really learn about each other as much as possible before you do that, because history is crucially important when it comes to future, right? Based on the history of their bringing, their programming, you'll be able to almost like predict what the relationship will be like. In fact, I have this, it's called relationship oracle. It's like relationship predictor, because what it has multiple questions which you two people, or just individual, if you're a single person, you don't have to be in a relationship to do that one, but you just answer very simple questions which typically lead to you revealing the default programming which is given to you by default, of course, from your parents, from your upbringing and books, as I mentioned earlier on, all other ways of programming, and it predicts the future. For example, I had a client who believed that a hero, of course, he was a man, he was a hero, should never be distracted by a woman. That was his program based on, I think it was one of the movies or something. So that was his program, right? And when you have a program that the hero should not be distracted by a woman, will you really get into long-term relationship? No, because the program doesn't let you do that, right? So you got to really discover, whether with a tool like that or just by yourself, working with a professional, what is the default programming of two people who are going right now into the relationship. And it doesn't mean that if they have default programming, for example, of the separation, because they grew up in dysfunctional family, or maybe in a family of divorced, or maybe in a family of addicted people, it doesn't mean they'll be like that. What do you mean when I mean when you discover each other programming, you can change it. And when you shift that programming, just like my client, a hero cannot be distracted by a woman. He went into new, his own chosen programming. That was the right woman will help the hero to succeed even more. And
Absolutely.
how powerful is that, right? But without discovering your default programming with a tool or with a professional, or even two of you, it will be more challenging, but still possible. You don't know what is the default future of your relationship. So learning about the default future based on on the past will help you to rebuild and reshape your future based on what you, both of you, want. And that is something couples don't do. So I'm inviting couples to start doing that. Please do more often of that, because that will determine the future of your relationship.
So profound. I think if people they start building into each other, with each other, it's not whether you're looking in which direction, but if you're looking in the same direction together, that is more.
Mm.
How do cultural and societal norms impact individuals' perception and experience of love and relationships? Have you observed any cultural differences or nuances in relationships having a different dynamics in your profession or the kind of counseling coaching that you provide?
Absolutely. We have so many different cultures. We have so many religions. We have so many backgrounds. We have so many other ways how we, choose our belonging to one thing or another. And it's really important to learn about each other. It's really crucially important to learn about not only each other in terms of culture and background, but also the cultural differences, because there will be some stuff that a person will never be able to tell you because it's so ingrained in them, because it's so cultural. They're not even aware of one issue or another issue, or one dynamics or another dynamics, right? So that's why whenever I work with a couples, I always ask them to almost like go on a discovery journey when they go and they really learn about each other. It's not obviously up to me to tell them what is their cultural differences, because even though I know them, but their upbringing might be completely opposite to cultural standards, right? So if I'll tell them just cultural differences, it's not going to help them at all, because they got to know their upbringing and how their parents were looking at the culture and what they were actually implementing from the culture into the family. So
Mhm.
always say discover about each other, literally learn. Just ask us each other as many questions as possible to understand culturally what means what are the boundaries, what is right, what's wrong, what is questionable. You got to learn all of that in order to really understand your partner. Just knowing their age and knowing what they do for life and knowing their goals is not enough, right? You got to really dig deeper. It is an adventure. Don't rush into a relationship before you really find out about them, but like really, really discover. So that's why, you got to really learn. The one constant thing amongst all cultures, all religions, all different backgrounds is the fact that there's always feminine and masculine. And I talk about it a lot across all relationships, right? I don't care where people are coming from. I always mention masculine, feminine energy. I have both energies. You have both energies. Everybody in the world has masculine and feminine. And what's important to remember, there cannot be two masculine energies in a relationship at a very strong level. There cannot be two very strong feminine energies in a relationship at the same time, right? We are fluid. We're constantly moving from masculine to feminine, feminine to masculine. If I'm at work, I'm more masculine. If I'm at work at home, I'm more feminine. If you are with your women, if you are with your sisters, with your mother, with whatever women are in your world, you will go into more feminine state because you're surrounded by them. When you're with your guys, when you're with your friends, when you're doing business, you go into masculine state, right? But when a woman, she's coming from work masculine and he's coming from work masculine, we're gonna have a clash, right? Or when he's feminine, he's indecisive, he cannot make up his mind, and she's indecisive, cannot make her mind, then hello, who's gonna start being decisive, right? So that is constant. That is consistent amongst all cultures and all backgrounds, masculinity and femininity.
I think that's very important. And the way you have brought it out, I think people would understand now this concept and why there are frictions or why they're not able to gel well with each other when they are into these states. So, my final question to you, Olga, is people compromise a lot. They compromise a lot on one thing or the other while they are in a relationship. Any pearls of wisdom that you would like to share?
Ask yourself a question before you make a compromise, before you make a decision or a choice, a rather compromise. Would I do it in any case? In other words, will you regret it if you do it? For example, if you are in a long distance relationships and your partner tells you you should move to where I am, ask yourself, would you do it in any case? Would you move to that city? Would you move to that town? Like, would it excite you if you move and you remain there, but then you separate? Would you still want to be there? If the answer is no, then don't move. But find a compromise. Find a place where we'll be in the middle between you two, or different place completely, where both of you will be happy. Because when you compromise for the and you pay the price of unsatisfaction within yourself, the lack of happiness, lack of fulfillment, ooh, that compromise will be very expensive for
Very,
you.
yes.
Yeah. So you got to be really careful. If it is a compromise of, let's say you are with a smoker, right? That's my non-negotiable, completely no. But if you are with a smoker, right? And for them, for example, they prefer to smoke inside, right? And you're okay to compromise on that. Well, okay, then good for you, right? Okay, that doesn't disturb you, even doesn't disturb you, right? But if you're not willing to compromise on that, but you want to be with them and you are okay with them being a smoker, then the compromise would be, well, I'm sorry, but I don't feel like you smoke inside, and then everything stinks of cigarettes, and then maybe you could go outside and smoke outside. right? This you actually sharing, I don't like it. Could you please compromise? Where do you do it? Because I already compromise on you being a smoker, right? And it's up to them to just respect your boundary and to say, well, yeah, you're actually right. It's not really healthy for you when I smoke next to you. So let me just go outside and smoke there, right? But if you are one of those who is like, no, I don't care, I'm going to smoke inside, then the other person should think if they should compromise on their health. I know it's a very basic example, but sometimes on a very basic example is easier to understand.
And more importantly, it's never ever the big things. It's the small pinpricks, which are actually the game changer, probably ruin a relationship.
Mm-hmm. It's tiny, tiny steps. Absolutely.
Small,
Absolutely.
small things,
Yeah.
which turn into something big later on. So,
Absolutely.
so thank you, Olga, for such an interesting take on relationship, fidelity, infidelity, drawing boundaries, accepting and understanding your vulnerabilities. In fact, we had conversation on a lot of things which make human relations so complex. But at the same time, if we are being honest to ourselves and we are honest to the person with whom we wish to spare some quality time and probably looking up to going till cows come home, it makes a lot of sense that we are taking the right step in the right direction with utmost trust in ourselves and the decision that we are making. So, as a matter of practice, what we do is that we don't let our guests leave without shooting a not three round, that is three rapid fire questions in quick succession.
Okay.
The reason is that let's bring some interesting concepts out for our listeners to understand that what are the other things that we may have missed out on when dealing with relationships. So, my first question to you, Olga, is what is it that people look for in their relationships?
Mm. Well, we always ultimately, at very anthropological level, look for love.
Mhm.
Is what we seek. We seek love. We seek being loved. We seek being accepted, which ultimately is still love.
It's very profound and a deep statement. Name the three most common reasons people fall out after prolonged relationships.
Prioritizing their ego
Mhm.
and pride, of course. Ego and pride, they go together.
Mhm.
Boredom, when a relationship gets stagnant,
Okay.
and lack of communication.
So communication plays a very important role in
It does.
taking your relationship to the next level.
It
And
does.
my final question to you: how do you create opportunities in life?
You go out and you create them. You just simply ask yourself, what if? What if I just try this? What if I just try that? How big is the chance? What's the chance this will happen? You just start thinking bigger and you just play along.
Absolutely. In fact, when we are coaching or mentoring startups or founders, and many times, in spite of the fact that they have a certain amount of risk taking ability, they are suspicious of their own abilities or their own strengths, and they're saying, what if I fail? And my question to them is, what if you succeeded?
Exactly.
So you have to take a call, you have to take a chance, you have to take calculated risks in life. And with that, Olga, it was really, really so humbling experience to get to know so much about relationship in such a subtle and easy manner. I think things couldn't have been better than this. I'm pretty
Thank
sure that a lot of our listeners, viewers, because this particular podcast is going to be not only aired on YouTube, but also on Spotify and Apple Podcast. I'm going to share all your links in the podcast description so that if our listeners would like to reach out to you, they don't have to go through me. They can straight away reach out to you and probably make benefit of the kind of expertise that you bring onto the table. It was so profound conversation that we had. I'm going to think a lot more about relationships and so many things that we have just touched or nicked the base.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tarun. It was such a pleasure to be here, and you had fantastic questions. You're a really good host of your podcast. Thank you so much. And I
So
really hope what we shared will serve your community.
certainly, in fact, today we are living in a global community and there are no boundaries. Almost everybody is grappling through similar challenges. And this particular conversation, if it brings hope, probably gives people an opportunity to understand where they went wrong. I think my and your job was done. We have saved a couple of lives. Probably we offered them a ray of hope. There is always light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm really happy to hear that.
Thank you so much, Olga. And I wish you that I had to pull you out when you were having a good time with your family and the loved ones. But I'm so blessed and honored to have you on this show. And as we say it, कि हमारे हौसले हमेशा बुलंद रहने चाहिए. And that means that our spirits should always stay high.
Mm, that's beautiful. Love that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for having me on the show. Thank you.